and welcome to Moscato's Kitchen Essentials, where we experience, learn, and enjoy all things culinary. What I'm going to be demonstrating for you tonight is the preparation of scones. It's a very easy thing to make. You can just make plain scones without any fruit or nuts or raisins, or you could incorporate fresh fruit, fresh seasonal fruit, which is what I've done. So tonight we're going to be making peach scones scented with the beautiful spices of ginger and nutmeg. Now when we're baking, the most important thing to remember is what's called mise en place, and that is the French, classic French term for everything in its place. Restaurants use mise en place. That's how they can get their meals out, and that's how bakeries work. Everything has to be organized. So what I've done is everything is pretty much ready to go. And with scones, it's the dry ingredients first. We make our wet ingredients. We mix them together. We add our fruit, and then we form our scones. So they're really very simple. So what I'm going to start with is the dry ingredients. When making scones, there's a little bit of a, I guess, discussion point between whether you use bleached flour, which has a little bit of a lower gluten content, or unbleached flour. For something like scones, cookies, pie crusts, I like to use the bleached flour because the protein content is about at a 9%, whereas your unbleached flour is at about, well, depending on the type you buy, but let's say 11.5%. And gluten forms the structure of breads, but it's really not what we want with a light and airy scone. So I'm going to be putting 2 cups, well, about 2 1/8 cups of bleached flour. And we want to do the kind of scoop and clear method, like so. So that was 2 cups, and we'll go with about 1/8 of a cup. Okay? Now we want, in this formula, we want 2 teaspoons of baking powder. This is our leavening agent. This is what's going to give the scone the nice rise. We're going to use a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. And again, depending on the sweetness of the fruit, we're going to go with between a 1/3 of a cup or a 1/2 cup of sugar. I have just shy of a 1/2 cup of sugar right here. And I have the spices, as I said before, ginger and nutmeg. So what we're going to do is just sort of mix this up. Okay. Now, the next part of this is the butter. We're going to incorporate 1 stick of butter, which is 8 tablespoons, but it needs to be cold and it needs to be cubed, and I like to use my bench scraper for this. And so this is how we do it. You can use a knife, but I like to use the bench scraper. Okay. And with a pastry blender, what we want to do is incorporate the butter into the dry ingredients. And what we're looking for is just to really incorporate it, not all the way, but just so that it really, we still want little pieces, little chunks of butter, because that's going to lend to the flakiness. And don't overmix it. We want to really work fairly rapidly because we certainly don't want the butter to melt. Okay, there we go. And now we're going to add our peaches. So this is about a cup of fruit, a cup of peaches. Just mix it all around. Want to incorporate all that fruit into our dry. And now, and the whole thing with scones is we just don't want to overmix. Okay. I have 4 tablespoons or a half cup of milk. Now if you want to enrich your scones, you can use half and half or light cream or even heavy cream. But I've chosen to use just regular milk today. 1 egg and a teaspoon of vanilla. And we're just going to mix it all up. Now have a little bit extra flour if it's a little too wet, or you might want to have a little bit of extra milk if it's a little too dry. What you're looking for is just a nice consistency, and I'll show you what I mean when I roll it out here. I think the reason why people tend to have scones which are just, they're not happy with, is probably because they overmix. Okay, and this is a preparation where you really need to use your hands. And I'll show you what I mean. It can get a little messy, but it's worth it in the end. Don't overflour, just kind of have enough. And this is where your bench scraper comes in really handy. Okay, now there are a couple of ways to form your scones. What I like to do is just pat them into a circle, pat the dough into the circle. If you have time, at this point, what is a good thing to do is to wrap up your scones, your scone batter, in a piece of plastic wrap and put it into the refrigerator, because the gluten that's in the flour, even though we've used a low gluten flour, the gluten needs to, when it relaxes a little bit, your finished product is really much better. But what I'm going to do is show you how to cut, and this is it. This is how you do it. I'm going to be making 10 scones. So each of these halves I'm going to cut into 5. And really, this is all there is to it. And on your floured and sprayed pan, you're just going to place your scones. And rather than placing them all in different crazy, what you want to do is put the larger side out, because they're going to bake faster. And this is how it's done. Now, another thing you can do is, these are not going to be terribly sweet, but what I like to do is brush the top of the scones with either egg or egg and milk, or just milk. And I have just the milk right now. So in addition to this, what's really nice is to sprinkle a little bit of citrus sugar on top. And this is made by, I would show you, my hands are kind of dirty, taking regular sugar and taking your microplane zester and just kind of getting some zest into the sugar, and just keep this on your countertop. Let the zest dry out, and it's a very aromatic, very nice topping. Now, after the scones are baked, if you'd like to have some icing on them, confectioner's sugar, water, and maybe a little flavoring, or not. This is really plenty. These are baked in a 375-degree oven for, about 18 to 20 minutes, and then they're done. And I have some that have been made already. What I did is I decided to make some larger scones, and those were made, I made them, it was in a rectangular shape, and I cut those into 8. So this is what they look like when they're all done. And they're delicious. They're light, they're wonderful, and they're, as you can see, very easy to make. So that's it for tonight, and ciao ciao, see you again.